I'm going to demonstrate or just share with you some ideas around teaching students who have got different degrees of strength or mobility at the same time, as all our students do. Feel free to join in with me, although I might just show one side sometimes, but you can just pause and do whatever you want. So I thought we'd start with the knees a little bit apart, and I'll just do a little sequence and vary it as we go along. If somebody had knees which this wasn't going to work for them, I would think of a couple of options. One would be to put something, well, under the knees, if that was the issue, just a pressure thing, or behind the knees. For some reason, I find when you put your head down, it's easier to get it in there. So you might want a spacer there. Or I sometimes just suggest they start lying on their back, and then if I was going to do any rocking movement, they could rock or whatever. So just FYI. And then start with a small movement of the spine. Not sure why I called it small. So just like getting into the flow, getting into the movement of that classic cat-cow shape. Obviously, this is the start of the movement, but maybe you already wanted to do a breath practice, or you could have an embodied breath practice. So we could inhale forward and exhale back. You might find it feels comfortable to inhale forward and exhale back. You can always give people the option to breathe the other way. So feel free to breathe in any way that feels good for you. And then you might find that you want to slow the exhale, which can be great if we're feeling a bit anxious. So maybe slowing down that movement back and inhaling, letting the chest come through a little faster than the exhale. So with that, we've kind of started to include if people are a bit anxious, that can feel a bit more accessible to them. If someone was lying on their back for this practice because their knees were sore, they could just breathe in their own time. Or this could obviously be done sitting in cross legs if that's not an issue for the knees and the other thing is. You can continue to mobilize here if you'd like to. So you could add in like arms up, chest forward, and then pushing forward with the arms and rounding the spine. So there's all sorts of ways you could progress from here. I'm not going to keep people on the shins for too long. So then I'm going to bring the hands in front of the knees, not super far forward, and then tuck the toes and still work this flexion extension pattern. So coming up onto fingertips, rounding to drop down, and then slide the hands towards the knees to arch forward. And you could do that a few times and then push back towards the heels. So towards Malasana. This is all quite a knee heavy class, isn't it? If someone was sore there, so you would have to just probably do something else. So mentioning that heels might be up or heels might be down. You might want to keep your hands down for balance. Chest comes forward, rounding the spine. Heels come down. So then again, if people were quite balanced there, if they were balanced enough there, you could hold there. You could add in arm lifting movements, arm lowering movements. So then we're going to let the knees come down. If you've got good control, you could try with your arms forward to lower the knees with control. And then lifting up as if lifting from the lower hip, and let the spine reach forward a little, lifting the chest. Rocking back, hands down, or you might find you can lift your knees one at a time or both together. Heels can be lifted or down, lengthen up. And one more, bringing the knees towards the floor. Use support of the hands if you prefer. So if I had lots of students here and they were needing their hands down, I would just do that with them. I would keep my hands down once I demoed the other thing. Lifting high. Good. And then from here, we'll step forward with one leg for low lunge. Now, if you're feeling quite steady, feel free to keep your arms out to the side a little and slowly lift the ankle so you get a little inward rotation at the leg. You might prefer to have your hands on bricks if you're feeling less stable. So bring that leg forward and then lifting up from here. Fantastic. Then we're going to keep this right arm down, reach up with the left arm and lean a little ways across, lifting high with the chest. Steady breath in and out. And let's just really go for this quite neutral shape in the pelvis for now. So that's going to give us lots of length in that left hip flexor more than if we're leaning forward and down. So lift up with the chest. Good. And again, let that arm come high. If you're feeling quite strong, quite steady, feel free to lift through with that left leg. Could come quite long in the pose, or bend the knee if it feels a bit much. Lovely. And then let's have a little balance play from here. Keep the knee down if you're feeling more wobbly. Keep the arms lower if you're feeling more wobbly. But feel free to start to move knee up or knee down. Circling and reaching so that your core stability kicks in to help you find the balance. And you could also lift and open the chest here. So it's quite a freestyle movement. So there's no end goal. So everybody can just do as much as they want to. And then you might wing the arms wide and maybe go into shoulder extension and take the arms behind. And some people would be doing this whole sequence on that back knee. Fantastic. See if it's comfortable to lean forward. Again, they might be on the back knee with the chest. And then if you want to load up the weight more through that front leg, reaching forward towards fingertips. So you can see how some people might still just be here and they might decide to lean forward. Amazing. From here, we're going to be stepping forward. So if you've got bricks there, move them out of the way. You can come in any way that you want to. So you might want to push off your knee and step forward to Utkatasana. Or if you're here, feel free to just step forward. If you're ready for a rest, let the legs lengthen. Otherwise, let's tiptoe forward and backward a few times with that left leg. So this is really firing up through this leg. It's not classical asana, as you can see. It's got a little bit more of that fire body weight workout in it. La-di-da, come up, release. You can give some people to pause, to be in their Tadasana, whatever works for them. Now we're going to come into that first more sun salutation type element. So if I had people who I didn't know so well, I'd just be having a good look at how they're moving. You might want the bricks there. Feel your feet steady on the ground. Have that sense of that neutral pelvis again, just so you can really enjoy that lift and length along the spine. We're going to inhale, let the arms reach high, and exhale, reach forward and down. Feel free to bend the knees. Good, let's get the hands onto something, floor, legs, bricks, whatever it is. And let the chest reach forward. Lovely. Exhale, round your spine, let your head go towards your knees. And inhale, let the chest reach forward. Couple more of those. Lovely. And then hands to the floor or to some bricks. We're going to step back both legs at a time. You might want to jump if you're feeling super strong. And we're going to find a plank pose. Good. So in plank, let's try draw the tailbone towards the floor. You might want your knees bent a little, posterior tilt. And then stick your bottom up and do a little anterior tilt. So we're kind of educating about the position of the pelvis. And then stay with a more posterior tilt, even if the knees need to bend. Amazing. You might prefer to have your knees on the floor. I said that a bit late, but you can get people to take the knees down. If you had real students here and you saw someone like, then you'd obviously remember to tell them. Yeah, fantastic. And then from here, just round your spine. Let your hips come back towards your heels. Let your hands slide in. So kind of come back to the starting position. And then we can go through on this side. So you might do a bit of flexion, extension. You don't have to do it all on the other side because obviously it's quite a symmetrical sequence that we did anyway. But you might find if you add in here, you could deepen the camel a little bit. And we could also add in a little bit of leaning back. So you could kind of vary the sequence and lifting up to get the legs working. Then from here, we're going to be stepping the left leg forward. Feel free to have your hands down for support. Otherwise, we're going to lift the ankle out, have a good wobble as you bring the leg around and plant that foot down. Fantastic. Let's lift up tall through the spine. Good. Hand to the thigh, reach high. If you feel a bit wobbly, you could always take that foot wider and turn it out more. Otherwise, lifting, reaching across. Just notice your breath here. You might feel that you have more breath moving down on that long right side of the body. So that's a little bit of kind of detail that maybe if I had real beginners, I may or may not give so much detail about the breath. Fantastic. And then if you wanted to lift up, feel free to lift up through that back knee, or you could keep the knee down. Feel free to lean across again. And then it may be that you want to start your circling, lifting high, leaning around. Sometimes it feels a bit more manageable with that back knee bent. If you feel like it's quite tight in those hip flexors, those muscles that are connecting from your leg onto your spine. Good. And if you want a really good balance challenge, make some lovely big circles. Good. Knee up or knee down. Feel free now to lean forward so you end up loading more through that front leg. Good. From here, we're going to be stepping forward. You might want to do that with hands down or hands on the thigh. Or from here, step through, lift the chest. You can hold there or tiptoe back. Good. Then I just look at the students. If I saw someone was really struggling, I'd kind of be like, yeah, just pause at any time. And I'd just sort of quietly be reassuring to that person or those persons. Otherwise, tiptoeing, standing really tall. You might want to do some more from here, but for now I'm going to just teach the forward fold again and add in a little bit. Inhale, reach high. Exhale to your forward fold, bending the knees as much as you need to. Good. Let your chest reach forward. Taking a breath in. Amazing. We're going to get the hands down to the floor. So just take your time finding the bricks or the floor. It might be easier to tip the weight into the hands a little if the feet are further back. Good. Anyone feeling super strong, feel free to go up on tiptoes and really load up through the arms, through the shoulders. Maybe that you're ready to just step back. So last time we just did plank and awareness of the pelvis. So now we're going to lift through to down dog. Lift high to the sit bones and then come onto tiptoes and come back for plank. So you could kind of teach it in that way. Lovely. Instead of going through chaturanga up dog first, now we're going to add in an up dog pose. We're going to come forward, glide the chest through, and you might want to walk your tiptoes in and squeeze high with the chest, drawing it forward and up, and find your down dog again. Amazing. Feel free to repeat that a few times. You may prefer to rest. You could take child pose. If anyone's really missing the chaturanga, just add in your chaturanga dandasana and then come through into up dog from there. So you can kind of let people know they're allowed to do what they want to do. Fantastic. And then from there, let your knees slowly come down once more. Good. And then lift up through to high kneeling. So you can kind of progress that sequence from there, maybe adding in more camel variations. You could add in some reaching down the leg from your low lunge, etc. And then where we're going with this is to step forward again to that Utkatasana. So I'd be doing this thing again, maybe this again. So it's like a ladder sequence. You repeat and then you add on, and then adding forward. And then this time I'm going to add on a twist. Dum-ba-dum. Coming up. Dum-ba-dum. You could make that quite playful, do a bit more shoulder blade action, leaning across, twisting the arms, and then twisting down. And you can add in extra balance challenges. So you could ask people if they wanted to stand on one leg or shoot one leg back out again to revolved lunge. Da-da-da. So this is the second cycle through, or the third cycle through of our ladder. Fold down, etc. Take a vinyasa that suits you. You may prefer to just step to down dog and go to child pose. Yeah, and then your super keen vinyasa bods, they're just bumbling through, doing their vinyasa. You're chilling out a bit more with those who are going a bit gentler probably. Good. And then let's once more from our down dog, tuck the toes, bring the hands back, inhale, open the chest, exhale, round the spine, lead from the base of the pelvis and open into whatever camel variations you're on. La, la, la. I'm going to stay on the same side so that I'm kind of working towards you, so then you're stepping the leg around. You might come to high lunge, you might stay in low lunge. Good. And then this time let's set the twist from here. It's a little bit of a difference to the sequence. Good. Feel free to keep the knee down, tiptoe forward and back 2 or 3 times. Lovely. And then you could add in, say, offer an arm balance. So you might want to practice your Utkatasana between Utkatasana and Tadasana a few times. That might feel where your practice is. If you feel that you want to add in an arm balance here, we'll be bringing the hands down, tucking the elbows in towards the legs. Might want your feet on a brick to help you lift up, and then press the arms on the knees. Now see if you can imagine pulling your chest forward, and then you might find you can lift one leg or both legs off the floor. The other way to teach that pose that works really well is to have the feet just up onto the wall, and then they can glide away from the wall a little bit. So you've got people there, here, here, and you just say, there's no rush. Just take your time coming into your side bakasana and out. Some of you might want to fly the legs into Ekapada Kandanyasana. So you can always, again, just kind of briefly demonstrate something if you want to. Others might be doing this. Join us when you're ready. We're going to take a forward fold. If they're going on for ages with their arm balances, you can say, we're going to take our way through the vinyasa. Just join us whenever you want. If you've got super strong students, make sure these guys know how they're getting back. Good. Feel free to take a vinyasa that suits you. I'm going to do toes tucked to up dog. Through to down dog. Lower the knees. And then you've got the other side. So you get the idea that you can keep the sequence so it comes quite familiar. So ladder sequences are good for that. And then just at each stage, you've got a couple of options. But they're quite similar options, so everybody feels like they're just working together doing something similar along the way. Couple other poses that I just wanted to mention. So the reason that arm balances are so good is because the whole way to progress into that pose is the same. It's just that last little flourish, if you like, the garnish, which is different, and it doesn't usually take that long. And if people have got an amazing arm balance practice, they're quite likely not to really be in a mixed level class anyway, or to not mind not doing it all on that day. When it comes to teaching headstand, the key, I think, is to teach the preparatory poses really well. So dolphin pose is great for that. And also, as soon as you tell people like, oh, we're going to prep headstand, then everyone's just thinking headstand. So don't tell them. And in general, if you have a multi-level class or lots of different level students, they wouldn't necessarily say that you've got a peak pose. Forget about the whole peak pose thing and just do an exploration where it takes you, because otherwise people can feel quite attached to something that may or may not happen. So dolphin, or I'm not going to say it. So we're going to have the arms down. You may find that you want your hands together here because it will give a bit more leeway to your shoulders. Press down through the wrists, lift up and back with your hips pressing well through your arms. So you see I demo straight away with the knees bent because that's going to make it easier for people to push the shoulders back and up. Good. And then when some people just, it's really hard, so they could come down and rest at any time. As you're resting or in between, feel free to do some lengthening of the spine. Finding your breath there, that might feel where you want to stay, or repeating through to the dolphin once more. Good, then you teach dolphin, then you add in the option to lift one leg. So step in a little, knee can be straight or bent, lifting a leg. And you can kind of have people kick higher if that works for them, or stepping closer if that works for them. And the other side. Keep drawing up and back through the shoulders. La, la, la. Yeah, fantastic. And then once you've done all that, you've done this really good work for your shoulders, and it's this really good prep for headstand, then you could mention the headstand word if you've got students who are able for that, and you could teach headstand. Those people who aren't ready for headstand, they're probably going to be quite tired from the dolphin anyway. So then they could either do this lengthen again, this again, or often if it's the shoulders that are holding them back, then, so because headstand needs a lot of shoulder flexion, this angle kind of 180 degrees. So then they could do, you know, these kind of movements, or even lying on a prop and then having a more subtle, a more passive shoulder opener. So often at that point, those students are quite tired and they're happy to lie over a brick or a bolster. Legs could be straight or bent, and they just hang out and let their shoulders open. So just so long as you explain why it's relevant, they tend to be happy to do that. The other one is there's a certain degree of stability, obviously, in headstand. So you could have them do, you know, a bit of boat pose or something like that. So something relevant. The other thing that I mentioned in the talk is that we can add inversions, or like, we can add inversions or forearm balance during the transition of the vinyasa. And that does work quite well, but that's assuming that your students already really have that pose in their practice. Otherwise, you're not just going to like throw those poses in, but that can work quite well there. So hopefully that gives you some idea of the progressing, building it up stage by stage towards the more complex poses. So the more complex pose that I demoed was that side crow, Parsva, and also the way that you can cue and hopefully stay a bit with your students who are working a bit more gently. Thank you.